Well, to mask or not to mask? This is the question. Now, you are watching this because you are curious about what North Fresno Church's response is going to be to the recent change in mask guidance for vaccinated individuals. And you have perhaps seen my email and the email on behalf of the COVID task force, and you are looking for more information on our decision-making process. But if you haven't seen that, the answer to the question that we are moving forward with, and that this video is going to invite you behind the scenes in the decision-making process. I almost said division-making process, and that's why I'm inviting you into this, so that you can see that we are aiming for unity in this decision, which has been made that beginning on this Sunday, May 23rd, masks are optional for in-person worship in the sanctuary at our 10 a.m. gathering. However, we are inviting you to choose out of your own free will to remain masked for in-person worship until Sunday, June 13th, out of love and concern for children and youth who must still remain masked. So, how did we get to this decision, and who made this decision, and why was this decision made? First, our church is organized by our congregation, who have selected a group of leaders that we call the leadership board. And the leadership board, when the pandemic began, tasked a subcommittee called the COVID task force with searching through all of the information to provide recommendations and decisions on behalf of the board to the congregation. And these are decisions that are made by us and for us. And the COVID task force, if you are wondering, well, who are those people? Well, here they are. They are Pastor Lauren, Beverly Ford, Sue Cleaver, Bev and Richard Copper, Pastor Connie, and myself. And so we have met since my arrival in September of 2020. We have met monthly at times, weekly at times, but most often every other week. We have met to go through the most recent numbers in our region and reviewing recommendations from the CDC and other sources. And so as we have met, we have consistently lived in the tension of what it means for us to gather as a body of people called the local church, called North Fresno Church. How do we gather on the one hand, and how do we live safely in the midst of a global pandemic? And we have lived in the tension between these two values, loving our neighbor and living and being safe with one another, and how do we gather together in a COVID era? And how do we, this is the tension that we have lived in. And as we have lived in this tension and looked for guidance and parameters on how we can safely gather, what that looks like, we have looked at three primary sources. Most of the news media outlets, social media and otherwise, are also looking at these same sources, but as we know, are obviously biasing or skewing them in one direction or another. And so we're going directly to these sources to read them for ourselves, look at them with our own eyes, and in the context of our own community, of people that we know who may be impacted, the contextual realities of our circumstances. What do these things have to say to us at this time? And so we have looked primarily at the broad national guidance that has come from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. We have looked in at the California Department of Public Health and how these two entities interface with one another. And then we have zeroed in on the Fresno County Department of Public Health statistics and numbers and things that these are all interacting with. And so this is the tiered system, yellow, orange, red, and purple. This has all been viewed through the lens of the Fresno County Department of Public Health. What is COVID doing in our county, and how have we responded? And so as we have moved up in the tier system, as the state requirements have, or parameters or guidelines have shifted in response to those throughout the state and all these different regions, and as nationally the Center for Disease Control has redirected their guidelines and parameters, most recently on May 13th, to say that fully vaccinated people can resume activities without wearing a mask or physically distancing, except where required by federal, state, local, tribal, or territorial laws, rules, and regulations, including business and workplace guidance. So what that means for us is that this is guidance from the CDC, that now we look to the state guidance. Where do they overlap? And are they aligned or misaligned? And so we look at California's guidance, which also on May 13th said California will keep existing mask guidance in place until June 15th, when it aims to fully reopen the economy. After that, the state plans to allow fully vaccinated Californians to go without a mask in most indoor settings. You will also have the option to wear a mask if you so choose. So California and the CDC are not in alignment right now. And as we talked about this tension, we talked about the reality that there are so many circumstances why individuals in our community, in our church family, in our neighborhood, in our city, have not received a vaccine. It's not just because they don't believe in it or have chosen not to. There are all sorts of contextual, personal reasons why people have not chosen to receive a vaccine. Also, until recently, adolescents could not receive the vaccine, and still currently, children are unable to receive a vaccine. And this may not be the case, and not all children or youth will choose to receive the vaccine. And so in light of this, and in the acknowledgement that our children, while they're at school until around this same date, are still required to wear a mask while at school, and out of our desire to choose to be examples, to lead with our children and families and what's important and matters to them, to allow ourselves as a community to voluntarily choose to model for our young people a choice that we freely have made on our own terms to, for a matter of weeks, continue to choose to wear our masks, even though we might not feel like we need to or even have to. But voluntarily, out of love, we are choosing for 4 more weeks to wear these masks. And we're also wrestling with the fact that this was a nearly impossible decision to make that would not divide us along the many different avenues and possibilities that we can continue to be divided. And we came to this decision. It's honestly sort of a third way decision. It might be a little confusing that masks are optional, but we're inviting you to wear them. We're trying to find our way between the divisions that exist of either mask or no mask. Because, my friends, this is not a zero-sum game that we're playing here. I, as your pastor, I want to invite us to a vision of what it means to be the people of God together, the family of God together, that moves past all of the ways that we could be divided along the lines of masks or vaccines, or do you trust the state, or do you trust the CDC, or do you trust people who don't trust the state or CDC? These are all continued pressure points for division within our community. And I want to invite us to a deeper vision of what it means for us to choose one another, to choose the needs of our neighbors voluntarily. You have the freedom to choose to not wear your mask. And I invite you to consider that may be a decision that you choose to make, and we can live with that. And others will choose to continue to wear their mask long past when it's all free and clear, whatever that even means or looks like. People will choose to wear a mask. And we have an opportunity right before us right now to learn to live together around this particular issue, as we have been invited by the Spirit of God into this conversation around Romans, where plopped right in front of us is a reality that Romans is trying to address for us. And here we are, live in real time, have precisely the type of challenge in front of us that Romans is addressing. And so how do we live faithfully and unified as a family of God in doing this? This is the best way forward in the midst of impossible options for unity that we feel like we could make. It may not be the most practical decision. It may not be the most long-term wise decision. We don't know, but we feel like for right now, this is the next right step for us to make. And so we wanted to just invite you in to the decision-making process, how we got to this point of where we are as of at least Sunday, May 23rd. And so over the next 4 weeks, we're going to continue to talk about what this looks like to live as a family of God with masks or not. But what we really want to talk about is that these masks that we wear or are divided over are really masking deeper issues that are surfacing in our community right now as we talk about these masks. And we want to heal the divisions that exist in our community, to call us to a deeper place of maturity and wisdom for the sake of our neighbor and for the sake of a watching world. How is the church responding? Who is the church looking to justify its own decisions? We want to look to Jesus, and what would Jesus do if he were us in this place? And this is what we feel like that is. So we would love for you to just take some time to pray and process this. Gather yourselves in your life groups or with some people who you trust to talk through this. You might be feeling confused or disappointed or upset, or you might be feeling anything right now. You might not be feeling anything right now, but we invite you to process that with people who you love and trust, and to step into this conversation with us and into this tension with us. So we love you. We are praying fervently, desperately, as we look to gather together this Sunday for a spirit of peace, for a spirit of unity, and for us to step into the messiness of the world that we live in with our arms linked rather than our fingers pointed at people we disagree with. So we hope that you will join us either in person or online this Sunday and every Sunday. Grace and peace to you.